next door in South Africa, they can do quite a lot. If you can get 10 people, 10 young people in your family or your social network to go and register to vote, you would have done a lot of stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are people on the space, on the microphone, but I'm going to keep you there. You know that this space was about the rally and to hear what's going on and for you to ask questions. So I've got my brother, the national deputy spokesperson for the Citizens Coalition for Change, led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa. Gift Ostalos, Comrade Ostalos is here. Good evening, Ostalos.
Evening, Hope. Evening, Zimbabwe. Thank you for having me today.
Well, today was quite a vibe. You were there. Tell us how was the vibe?
Thank you very much, Hope. Mutare was really electric. It was a difficult thing because Mutare resembles the exact reason why citizens demanded that the leadership of the MDC then must abandon all the MDCs in its various forms and capacities.
Can you speak up, my brother, because your volume level is low?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me now.
You are now much clearer.
Thank you very much. Today's program reflected or represented the formation of the Yellow Movement, because the formation of the Yellow Movement was, to me, as a student of modern scientific thought, a huge political risk for a lot of reasons. Number one is that people had the huge attachment with the past. Some have had a fidelity with that very same past. And some people also thought that it was unstrategic to move and form a new political movement. And some thought that because of the assault and attack that had happened to the movement, the only thing was to try and nurse the carcass and try to revive it. But citizens were demanding that we need a new political outfit in this country. So the risk by the leadership collective and the citizens of this country to say, let us move to the new, is the same risk that happened when the decision was made that let us have the rally in Takuba. Because in the morning when we got there, we slept there in the evening to try and set up things. And when we got there in the morning in the stadium, you could feel that, we are in between, demonstration of the victory or capacity of the people, or exposing the very same movement that, we are part of. So people starting to trickle in was actually, a very important thing. Even to people who are attending themselves, everyone will be like, that was the conversation in people. Half of the bays were empty at around 11, but which has been the norm across the country, that people start to trickle in and around 1 to 2 p.m. where the chairman-in-chief, the president, intends to address. So for me, it resembles the aspect of people power, but also the aspect of the important risk when you are driving a program or a movement that is a social contract with the people. And one of the most unique things, if you have followed rallies that have been held in this country across the political divide, they've all had huge fundings, whether it was MDC or ZANU-PF. But this rally was pulled without, a cent. There is no single cent that we saw from either constituency. People given even just a money for combis from Chikanga and Ndangavura to there. There was no single cent. These are ordinary citizens. These are not mobilized and organized party structures. So these are new people. That's why we've said to the organizer, the first thing that must happen is to teach the people the new slogan. Because these are not people that will come to the Ccc meetings or branch meetings. These are new people. These are people that have predominantly not participated in the politics. I've had conversations with some of the people. They will tell you, some will tell you that for one reason or another, we're supporting ZANU-PF. Some will say, majority, I think, where people say we didn't care about politics. But these are people who say, yeah, but you guys, so it's a huge reflection that there's a massive support for the Citizens Coalition. If we are able to pull such huge numbers as citizens of this country without any financial resources, imagine if now there is regalia when people come to rallies. There's all these other things that are part and parcel of the packages of political programs. So for me, it was so revealing. It's even beyond. I think that I was talking to Mkoma.
Right.
I think that somebody must write about this. It's a very, important part of the history of this country.
No, thank you so much for that, Brother Ostalis. What sort of problems are you facing in terms of financing this huge operation? Because it doesn't come cheap.
Yeah, I think the first expense is the human resource capacity. It's the most important thing because to drive such a huge, political program, you need communicators, you need, organizers, you need people, sound engineers. I think that those who followed our sound today was extremely perfect because we've managed to try and do more in terms of bringing in the necessary human resource capacity. You also obviously need human resource, also includes the security because of the high risk that is associated with this nature of programs. And for me, the security is on for twin objectives. Number one, to protect the citizens who attend rallies because we've got an obligation to protect citizens that attend the rally. So it means that our security apparatus has to be with the people, within the people, and outside the vicinity to try and make sure that there is no attack that comes to citizens from within and from without. And the second objective on security in terms of the human resource capacity is protection of the principal. For us, is very important because we know the kind of people that we are dealing with. So it's very important to ensure that we balance. If you have seen our security, so objective is to try and balance the president's capacity to connect with the people, where possible, greet the people, but also secure, the president. So that's also part of the human resource, and of course, the financial resource is a huge constraint because you saw that with one of the state of the art stages today. Because we are a modern political organization, you don't want to be like ZANU-PF. You have seen even just the podium of rallies used. It is reflective of the nature of the organization. They are archaic. If you see how they decorate their stage, they'll be using clothing, which I don't think that even ordinary people are using in their weddings now. So it's an archaic and exhausted political organization, reflective of the exhausted political leadership in ZANU-PF. So the alternative must prove. So each and everything where the president sits, the type of the podium, the stage, the automobiles used by the president, everything that is there must be reflective of the alternative modern political government that wants to govern a 21st century body politic. So it means that you have to have resources to ensure that you pull this through. I'm happy today with a massive number of local artists that were able to show up. So all those resources are needed to support these people, but there are, big resource constraints to make sure that, the decorum of the space is up to standard, which I think that our team behind the scenes have done extremely well to try and make sure that these services are provided. We have abandoned the issues of the tents, uh, obviously because of philosophical and ideological standpoints, because we don't believe that we must go to the extreme elite politics. That's what the president has said. As champions, we must be with the people so that we begin to understand in our political side that we must be connected with the people, for the people, by the people, always. So it's a big constraint to put this. Right now, we've just arrived in Masvingo to ensure that we prepare for tomorrow. So it's a huge cost to ensure that we pull this through, but we know that the collective effort of every Zimbabweans that have made these things possible, because that is the job of, junior officers or officers of the party to make sure that everything is brought together, so that tomorrow when the president is ready to deliver a speech, everything is set. So everyone is on hands on the deck to ensure that we are ready. We intend to travel to Binga. If all goes well, we're going to make the necessary communication, but that is our intention, so that we have our concluding rally there. So it's obviously heavily taxing in terms of the resource. And lastly, of course, the psychological and spiritual resource constraint is important because the nature of the people that we are dealing with, and obviously the need to have mental strength and stability, and of course spiritual protection, so that we're able to advance this cause whose intention is to liberate the people of Zimbabwe.
So you have spoken about the resource constraint, especially on the financial side. Before you came to this space, a lot of citizens were asking why you don't have a platform for local donations. Is it something that is going to be done pretty soon? Because there are a lot of people who want to contribute locally. Somebody wants to give 500 RTGS, someone wants to give 5,000, someone 10,000 RTGS. And they're saying that the platforms they are seeing are exclusively for those who have got access to bank accounts in the diaspora who can use GoFund and so forth.
Yeah. That's an important advance the conversation with the Treasurer General to find out. Know that there were technicalities around structuring the financial infrastructure of the new movement, because that we are dealing with a very primitive regime, and they've made sure that they use draconian laws to try and criminalize any fundraising locally. So I think that the treasury has worked on something, but I can follow up and see that if we're able to speed up, because I have no doubt in my mind that there are millions of citizens in Zimbabwe who are actually able to support financially the political programs of the party, to make sure that we mobilize resources locally. But there's massive support. I've no doubt if the president would say in a podium in one of the rallies, this is the code, people can donate with the Sonico cash. I think that there will be jam in that particular program. And there's a massive resource that I think people would fairly conclude and think that is untapped. But I can assure citizens that we're working flat out on that. I will definitely, after this space, engage the Treasurer General and find out once there's a platform, then we can easily put it out there publicly so that it's known and people can contribute locally. Thank you.
Now, today and yesterday we saw a letter that was put out by the Zimbabwe Public Police trying to ban or say, a prohibition, not saying that you cannot have your rally. Explain a little bit about this. You're facing these problems. You faced it in Gokwe, Masvingo. You're facing it in Binga. How are you going to go around this? And specifically the Mashingo thing, what actually happened? What was the story?
Yeah, it's a very disturbing trend. I think that is because the regime didn't anticipate that a new movement without all the pillars that have been traditionally been the definition of a movement, like headquarters, vehicles, finance act funding, and other things, members of parliament and council as the backbone and pillars of a political establishment. There was no anticipation that the movement would be this big. So the issue of the political rallies that came because of the by-election exposed the regime, but also um, um, were so revealing to the regime in terms of the capacity that the citizens had in the new political movement. So the only tool on the shelf, remember, this is a regime that has used every tool which is lawfare. It used everything in its disposal to destroy and create a de facto one-party state. So this a massive appeal of people supporting a new political movement without it being launched but just being announced was a shock. And the only tool left for the regime is violence. So the regime used the following. Number one, the regime tried to use counterintelligence to try and deter us from moving in the path towards a democratic breakthrough. So, as if you have followed, there was massive counterintelligence circulating in the entire Zimbabwean body politic. Number two, it used intimidation. Number three, it used what Shegler in his book Elections Without Democracy and the Menu of Manipulation calls harvest of fear. So that is the third thing that they used, harvest of fear. Number four, they then went to unleash the last tool on the shelf, which is the tool of violence, so that they go to their last objective or last tool on the shelf, which is assassination. These are people who have tried to use money to seduce the leadership, promises for power to the political elites in the opposition. They've tried to seduce the political leadership into cowing them into submission. And they've resorted, if you have seen with the trends, they started the last tool, which is the tool of violence and intimidation and possible assassinations of the political leadership in the opposition, because all other options had failed. And I'm not saying these things is in public record. They approached the president to say, join us, be in the opposition, come to Poland. Poland is just but a platform of trinkets and trappings of the regime's agenda to create a de facto one party state. And a few leaders in the opposition decided to remain firm and strong, regardless of the threats to recalls and so forth. So that's why the regime went and they tried to scandalize the leadership, tried to use all the other social scandals, whether women or men, to try and scandalize the political leadership. But strong and committed and firm leaders remain true to the cause. So Gokwe Kwekwe was shocking because these are spaces which has been predominantly controlled by ZANU-PF, and the amount of people turning over to political rally happening concurrently or just a few days after ED would have been used everything, state apparatus and state resources to try and mobilize people, was shocking for the regime. And therefore, the only thing was to increase the cost of participating in a rally. That was the regime's agenda. Let us increase the cost. Let us make it expensive. If you remember the law, the social media law that they tried to use to try and criminalize Hopewell and other Zimbabweans, was to try and make it expensive for people to tweet, anything against the regime. But people remained defiant. The regime was not prepared for social media. So they tried to use all these laws, but people didn't. They tried to use propaganda to say you can't tweet the regime out of power, but not knowing that the 21st century art of revolutions is wearing on the other hand. On the other hand is our government gangs firing bullets, and on the other hand is Wopo and Zimbabweans firing tweets. That is the nature of the 21st century revolution. But the regime did not understand that. So they tried to criminalize use of digital spaces. People have abandoned the traditional sources of media like the print media, the state media. They've abandoned them. They've gone to this platform to look for credible information, and so forth. So they try to use fear, try to assassinate the president, thinking that they can cow him down. And I said on behalf of the citizens movement, look, you can intimidate those who are part of the MDC. You can again stop political rallies. Because what we realize, and I hope Zimbabweans can be able to understand this, the police are on the side of the people. The police are professional, but ZANU has brought its toxicity to the securocratic institutions, such that professional conduct attracts expulsion from the police. Professional conduct attracts, intimidation and other problems for those who try to act professional in the securocratic institutions in this country. So what they've done is that ZANU-PF now then says, you members of the police or the army are not prepared to go and stop the Ccc. Give us the uniforms. We'll go and deal with them. So that's why you can see the conduct is unprofessional. No trained police officer will beat a citizen in certain parts of the body that we know are sensitive or can lead to fatality. So it's a clear sign that these are not trained people. We have seen some of them have been shot in robberies. Some are touts. Some will be wearing ZANU-PF regalia. So it's ZANU-PF against the people of Zimbabwe. But then they abuse state institutions. That's why a vice president said, deal with the police. They want to isolate ZANU from its own behavior and conduct. But we know, we are conscious of that. If you look at what happened in Marondera, as I conclude, is the political establishment of ZANU, which was in civilian clothing, which wanted to instruct the police to pounce on the people. But police were making proper submission that, look, there are children in this crowd, we can't fire tear smoke. 2, these people are orderly, we can't fire tear smoke. 3, these people are waiting for determination from the court, we can't fire tear smoke or live bullets on them. But you could see that there's someone taking information from Jongwe building and trying to infuse it into the rank and file of the police force in this country. So that is the problem. But what we have made as a determination is that, number one, there is no struggle without pain. There is no struggle without bruises. Number 2, the leadership collective must be prepared to say, if you are going to be in the forefront, you must lead from the front. It's the MDC where the leadership was leading from the back, where the leadership was cowed to submission, but not the Ccc. The Ccc has made a firm resolution that we have to lead from the front. If they kill us, they must kill us with the people, because these are the people that they have given us the mandate. So I've no doubt in my mind, we have no doubt in our mind as a leadership collective, that if we are to be killed today executing this struggle, we are not different from yesterday liberators. But that is the nature of any struggle. You must be committed to even pay the ultimate price. And I'm happy that the citizenry, as was represented in Gokwe, they say, if you are prepared to die with us, who will die with you? What is that? It's a social contract. It's a proper, legitimate, solid relationship between those who lead and those that are being led. Last, we have said ZANU can determine our political programs. So we can't make a decision that we're going to campaign in Gokwe and ZANU says you can't go there. And we say, it's okay, we are law abiding and so forth. Look, the law is very clear. We've got a freedom to assembly. We've got a constitutional right to gather. So ZANU, our political opponent, can determine our political program. Because if we do that, We are acting on the dictates of the enemy, and there's no doubt that we are not going to succeed. So that's why there's this massive turnout of ordinary people, which we can't even explain ourselves philosophically, is because of a strengthened and solid social contract. Because people know their leaders that these are authentic, that these are not fake people, these are genuine leaders who are prepared to lead the struggle for transformation and total change in Zimbabwe. So that is the decision that we have taken as a leadership, that we have to forge ahead. The detector can't give us the menu on how to fight it. So we have to do everything possible within our powers to advance this struggle in the face of authoritarian tutelage, in the face of military dictatorship. We have to advance the cause, pay the ultimate price, present the alternative to the people of Zimbabwe, because that is a defined objective. Our rallies have a twin objective: to introduce yellow and introduce our candidate for the purpose of the by-election. So we can't be stopped by ZANU because they are campaigning, they are doing all the political programs uninterrupted, in fact, with the full support of different state institutions. So as a government in waiting, we have to even protect those who are oppressing us. So we've got a moral responsibility to protect the police, to protect the army, to protect the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission against its own toxic and evil conduct. We have to do that. They are part and parcel of the people who need liberation. So our liberation has to spread its tentacles beyond the traditional support base of people of Zimbabwe or ordinary citizens who want change. It includes people who work for the government, permanent secretaries. It includes the bureaucrats of the entire state infrastructure. But those people also want freedom. Why do they want freedom? They want a salary above the poverty line. They want water in the tap. They want affordable education. They want free health. They want a proper, healthy lifestyle. So we have to provide that. Our objective is not just to liberate ourselves, but to also liberate the enemy.
Thank you so much, Comrade Ostalos. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open up so that people can ask their questions. If you have got a comment, 2 minutes. If you want to ask your question, you ask your question, and then Ostalos can answer. So Tawana, please go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Me, usually when I'm given such a platform, I've got two issues which I keep on repeating, which I think they are very, very important for the movement. Because I see the topic here is the Mutare Ccc rally and the by-election preparedness. Comrade Ostalos, thanks so much for a comprehensive analysis of what's happening there. In my imagination, I imagine that every rally that we do, let's pick Mutare rally, it's a Manica land. We have our Manica land voters roll that were given by ZEC. We've got our ushers who are moving around in the people, just ticking. It can be an exercise for fun, just ticking. How many people do we have? Then after the rally, we go home and we, as leadership, we sit down and see for this rally, how many were coming from this constituency or in this ward. We will find that there is a ward which had full house of people. Then there was a ward which was 2 people. We can use that analysis. Now we need to fight ZEC going scientific. The way Pachelu is fighting ZEC, they are not just uttering things. They are just pointing what's on the voters roll, what's on the BVR. So if we got that scientific, we've got a bigger chance of making sure that we are represented in every ward, in every polling station. And you'll find that the people who come to a rally, usually they are people who are brave enough to defend the vote. So you can actually tell that in this ward, on this polling station, we've got 77 people who attended our Mutare rally. It's easy to get 10 people who are going to be our polling agents and defend. Let's train these people, number one. Number two is, with the advent of social media, Comrade Ostalos, I believe we can have, for example, what I can call every Monday weekly review, which is a 20-minute broadcast from our leadership, just to rebuild all the propaganda, weekly propaganda from Herald, from ZBC, from all other these media houses which are anti-citizens. So it's important that weekly we can have just a weekly review of all the newspapers or media to make sure that all the citizens they know exactly that this what's being churned out by ZBC and by Herald is fake news. Because now with social media, news can spread more quickly than ZBC. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that intervention. I think it's one of those things that keeps coming up from time to time, Comrade Ostalos. Citizens saying they need regular communication with their leaders, whether it's space or any other platform. Go ahead, please. Ostalos, can you hear me? He seems to be having problems. So I'll ask Tawana. Tawana, can you hear me?
Good evening. I don't know if you can hear me clearly there.
Yeah, but we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, all right. If you can hear me, that's fine. I would say, well, what performance, what is seen today at Sakuba Stadium. What another political tour de force from Ccc and Nelson Chamisa, and what another robust political statement of intent from the Ccc and Nelson Chamisa. Of course, you know, the optics which we saw in Sakuba Stadium were very contagious, infectious, and very much impressive. You know, it seems that since the inaugural rally at Zimbabwe grounds, Ccc is growing in leaps and bounds. So many people have been wondering why Sakuba Stadium was such a crema de la crema of political rallies so far, which have been addressed by the Ccc and also Chamisa. I think a historical context is very essential for us in order to understand why the optics in Sakuba Stadium were such powerful. Manicaland and Manika itself. I want to make it clear, myself, I'm not Manika, I'm not Manicaland. Maybe people might taint me with the brush of being biased. I'm from Mondoro, more or less like Sezuru and so forth. But Manicaland has been historically a political laboratory or the epicenter of robust, radical, progressive, and revolutionary politics. Even if you look from the first Chimburenga itself, Manicaland produces Chief Tendai Mutasa and Chief Chingaira of Makone. These were the first Chimburenga anti-colonial heroes. And if you go to the second Chimburenga itself, you find out there was the likes of Herbert Chitepo, there was the likes of Eddie Katekere, there was Dabading Stole, there was Bishop Abel Muzoro. Yes, he started on a very good note, but along the way he messed up and was enticed by Smith to be a puppet of the Smith. And then you look at Simba Makoni itself, and then you look at Morgan Changurai and so forth. So that's a very essential context to understand it, since the Ccc have pitched their ideological program and their political program as the fourth Chimburenga. I think what we need to understand, I just want to buttress what has been already alluded by other people, that the lesson we learned in 2018 is that, you know, it's one thing to have a popular presidential candidate, and it's totally different thing altogether to have unpopular and mediocre local councillors or local MP candidates for the opposition. Is what Professor Jonathan Moyo normally said, that politics is local, you know. So what is needed, because with the Ccc, I'm glad Ostalos is here and so forth. I think we have some outstanding, you know, progressive and grassroots oriented politicians who are putting on a very, very good shift, who are working hard, who are working very hard, who are working their socks out in the constituency level. I'll talk of a person like Wende. I talk of Tentai Biti. I talk of this Amaiwe Kumfakosi. I talk of with BT, Wende, Mayock Mfakosi, and so forth. And I would say if the CCC could have 75% of its candidates with the same, work alcoholic zeal, with the same attitude of being grounded in the constituency at local level, moving into 2023, they'll have a good chance of having a good number, of MPs. Because as you know that, if Chamisa had won, if of course they say if he had been declared the winner by the ZAC, he was going to be a lame duck presidency, because
round up, Taona. Can you round up?
All right. So what I'm saying is that CCC, what they need to do, they need to come up with what is called a body system. People like Wende, like BT, and this mother from Mufakos, they need to adopt their other, comrades from other constituency, from rural constituency, and mentor them and carry them and give them the tactics of how to be grounded in the constituency, how to be organic in the constituency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tawana, for that. So we'll move on to Ray. Ray, please go ahead. Do you have a question or is a comment?
Thank you, Mkoma Hope. For me, it was more of a comment, maybe a few other questions, but I'd raised my hand before Gifted joined the call, but I think it works in my favor that is also here. So I just wanted to give my takeaways from the Mutare rally. I think Chamisa, or the president, our president Nelson Chamisa, he did speak on things that resonated with me, which is the issue of people questioning the use of voting after we have lost so many elections over the years. And this is something that it also deterred me from even engaging in political activities. I'm one of those people that had already given up and said, you know what, this is not going to help because we've lost so many elections. So obviously the Zambian election is one of the things that also came to revive my energy. So today the president did mention that, I mean, someone would rather stand in a line for one day and avoid standing in queues for the next years or the next 5 years of your life, queuing for a Zupco or queuing at a bank. So I think the rally itself had a lot of takeaways that resonated with me. And I think the build up, this is something that was mentioned also earlier on by the speakers that spoke before me, that the build up from the beginning, because I've been following these rallies also from the beginning to today. The energy is continuously building up, so which also I think it's a reflection of the amount of drive or let me say amount of reach that the party is gaining. So it was good to see, it was refreshing to see that even the young people in Nasu being represented there by Olin. I think a name was mentioned by Ccc Diaspora, if I remember. Her name is Olin Makoni. I think she also had an emotional moment. I actually shed a tear. I mean, seeing Comrade Ostalos and Fadzai Mahere being there running around with the president, but also being in the background, not forcing their way to be seen. I think it's also humbling. It was something which was touching. So on the Mutare MCC rally, on the Mutare CCC rally, I think that's the comment that I wanted to add. Then finally, I just wanted to thank you, Hopewell, and most of the teams that are working behind the scene. Most of the time, we don't give you flowers while you're still here. We only then run around and start applauding people like you that do lead from behind the scenes, that do some selfless acts and do not expect any recognition. I think it's also important that we just applaud you. We just applaud the media team. It's very good, the work that they're doing. And maybe this is also for Comrade Ostalos. I think just to comment on the issue of the presentations, I noticed that there was a time when the MP was speaking. I think it was the MP of Chikanga, and time was running out and the president had to say Shakwana. I feel like maybe speakers should be prepared so that they're given a time slot and they should know that they shouldn't speak too much. I hope I'm also not doing that. And lastly, I also noticed that the mic of the president, sometimes when he's not talking and someone is talking on stage, it's also still active. So he tries to whisper, but he can't whisper. We also hear what he's saying. So I think just for presentation matters, I think it would be good if you can maybe take note of that. But otherwise, great job. Thank you, Mkoma Hope.
Thank you very much for that. Chambi, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hopewell. I really appreciate. I just want to make a short submission regarding the rallies and preparation for by-election and looking at 2023 election also. My main concern is we have seen these crowds when it comes to support. Nelson Chamisa is loved, he's got the support, he's got the energy, he's charismatic, right? And my worry is we are seeing a lot of people going to these rallies. How are we going to avoid a situation of 2018 where people flocked out to these rallies in their thousands? Come voting day, they are told that this area didn't have an agent. I mean, if we are going, if CCC is thinking of taking power away from ruling ZANU-PF, I think we need to stop only looking at rallies. I myself in 2018, at some point in July when I was looking at rallies, I felt sad. I felt like crying. I even tried to stop voting because I knew that it was going to be hard for the then MDC Alliance to win. And I don't want us to walk in that situation again where we come to these spaces and we say, oh, it was lovely, it was carnival. We have seen this before. We have always seen this even in the days of Morgan Tsvangirai. But we are failing when it comes to deploying troops on the ground. We are failing when it comes to deploying polling agents, especially in rural areas. You need agents where you know that you don't have support more. What is the party doing? And I'm not expecting a straight answer. I know this is strategic, but I just want to alert the leader who's here, Ostalios, that as long as we don't field agents, even if we have 100,000 people at a rally, it will count for nothing. How are we going to stop this? How are we going to stop those anomalies that are being picked up by Team Pachedu to be starved in? And if you go back to 2018 election, you discover that Mashonaland Central had like 400,000 people voting in 2 hours. How are we going to stop such a situation? I'm not really worried about rallies. I know Nelson Chamisa can play even a million, for example. I'm just giving you a figurative figure. But how are we going to defend that million? How are we going to defend that vote that was in Sakuva Stadium? That's my main concern. And also, I want to say what Tawanda said is true. We might have people coming to rallies, but are these people registered? And the triple zero that needs to be scientific in its strategies to say how many people are we registering in this ward. I know they have a structure that they are adopted in 2019 Congress where they say they are structured at polling station based. So when they are doing the registration drive, do they have this test to say at this polling station for this month of March, we managed to register 2 people or 4 people? Because if they only say if they just say we're targeting 6 million voters, it becomes a slogan. But it should be scientific to say, no, we have 5,000 voters at this polling station in this ward. So that when ZEC produces a counter figure, they can be able to say, no, we have the data. We have the BVR slip that was submitted by our supporters. In this ward, we had 20 voters in March alone. So are they going to get that level? And for this one, I think I need an answer from Australians. The one with agents are not strategic, but the one of scientifically collecting data. What are they doing about it? I think we have had so many things. It becomes a slogan, Mr. Oppo, when someone says, we are targeting 6 million. How are you going to drill down those 6 million? Are you using your structure to say, at this polling edge station in Magunje, we got 6 votes because you have a chairman in that polling station, you have a secretary for elections. Are they doing their job? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comrade Ostalos, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. This is really inspiring for me to listen to such very important and submissions from Zimbabwe. The first point around, making sure that the microphone of the president, I think that to perfect that, the room for improvement is never filled. I think that the first thing that we wanted to make sure that has been coming out was the issue of the PA system not being sufficient to address to make sure that the message of the president is understood correctly by people in the rally. So we managed to correct that in this present rally. Number two, I think that you had followed that part of our also microphones that we had were a bit problematic. So we managed to get a proper one. And today I think that the president was loud and clear. So we have to make sure, I think that is just to make sure that those who are doing our sound engineering, you have to make sure that they follow the president's address such that when he's having an off conversation, they're able to switch off the mic as it were. So thank you for that. In terms of the point I think it was raised by Taona, if I'm not mistaken, around making sure that we can deploy ushers, I'll answer it with the same question that was asked by Chambi. It's about going scientific. There is no replacement of going scientific. The only way of making sure that we win this election is when we are able to prove it. And the only way to prove it is having structures that exist for the purposes of mobilizing people, organizing community, but more importantly, for collecting the necessary data on the day of elections. So the election machinery that we are assembling for the 2023 election is a huge machinery. And that machinery is informed by data. If you look at the 6 million number that we have submitted, we gave an disaggregation of the number in to provinces, to districts, up to branch level, such that the targets are not just on the big, hairy, audacious goal, but the targets are at the polling station level. I've no doubt in my mind that if we are not able to create that infrastructure, then we can't talk about 2023. We can't talking about winning election, because it's one about collecting data and proving, both we have to win the election and prove that we won the election. The second area, we have tried to make sure that in the beginning of our political program, we talk about the key deliverable and action point, which is having people to register to vote. And at the end of the program, we also talk about that key particular action point, which is registering to vote. So it's a defined political objective for this year that we must get millions of people registering to vote. It's a mammoth task, it's a difficult thing, but we have to get it right so that we've got a huge turnout. Once we have a huge turnout, our parallel voter tabulation must be a well-oiled machinery. I've no doubt in my mind that those people must be having smartphones. Those people must be able to communicate and fit into a system, and they must be there in communities so that we make sure that we have a proper PVT program that proves this is what happened in Mzarabani, this is what we got. These are the papers that were signed, the V11s and so forth. So it's the infrastructure that is needed. And part of the proposal were the training. I participated in one of the trainings to try and monitor the progress in terms of by-election agents, to try and see. I've seen where there are red zones and the people that are being deployed there. So we have to make sure that the by-election, as we have said in the beginning, is a test run of the 2023 election in terms of our own internal election preparedness capacity. So it's very important to make sure that we are able to have an honest, an honest and scientific audit of the by-election, so that we see our capacities, our weaknesses. But I have conviction that at least in terms of the training that have happened, therefore deployment of people across the country where there are by-election, particularly in rural areas. I saw red flags in Chiredzi. I saw red flags in St. Albert's and other spaces where there are by-elections. That proper deployment is being met. So it's a very important issue. We can't win the next election without us going scientific. But I would say, as I conclude on that question, that we need all hands on the deck. We need help of everyone. The task of our role now, in particular our Secretary for Elections, is to coordinate the necessary human resource capacities so that those who are able to contribute in that arena contribute and were able to collect the necessary data from the people, but we're also going to have the necessary human resource capacity to be able to help. I might not be exhaustive in terms of what must be done, but I know in terms of the strategic intervention, what is critical. And I hope and have confidence that it's work in progress, and the preparedness around that. Our role is to ensure that we monitor it, and the by-election outcome is going to prove, at least scientifically, that this thing was raised, this was the proposed solution, and it was implemented, or it was not implemented, so that we make sure that 2023 there are no loopholes, there are no loose ends in that particular regards. I think.
Thank you very much, Comrade Ostalos. Richie, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Brother Hopewell. My comment, few comments and questions and also suggestions. Number one, the performance at Sakuva. The only reason why we've performed so well and we continue to, to have this organic support is because of the citizen-centeredness of our political strategy. This is very important. The new style of doing things, leadership sitting with general supporters in the terraces, it's a game changer. It is a new way of doing things and it's going to pay off. The president is a demagogic orator. President Nelson Chamisa, no doubt. The issue of going scientific, very important. Comrade Ostalos, we need to capacitate our election directorate and create an election, technical back office, which will have people who will be working with the election directorate with a view to ensure that, we collect data. This is very important. And I think that the issue of data collection, like you have said, it must have structures. Structures that must really, be different from political structures. We are simply saying that there is need to separate structures for data collection and political structures of the party, so that we have a robust process that will deliver results. The issue of the current spaces, one issue that you should realize, is going to pay off. This interaction with citizens, Comrade Ostalos, you realize that there is a lot of knowledge, competence, people have experience. Citizens can do a lot in terms of delivering change. The appetite for change is huge, given the fact that the socio-political economic crisis in Zimbabwe, it's now 21 years old. People are in the diaspora, they are tired of being away from home. It's not easy. So people want to sort the Zimbabwean crisis like yesterday. The issue of the police, it's a serious issue. I will tell you just one story that happened. There was the officer commanding Mashingo around 2000, who is called Comrade Emmanuel Chimwanda. We had a Bikita West by-election, and Hunzi was leading a very violent team as NPF. Comrade Chimwanda was the officer commanding Mashingo. Violence happened and Chimwanda arrested Hunzi in Bikita West. It happened that I once sat down with him and he told me about this story. Chimwanda was summoned by Simon Mzenda Kwagutu when he arrested Hunzi. And he said, I was told that Chimwanda mwanangu, tiri kuziva kuti wasunga Hunzi uri kuita basa rako, but tiri kuda seat yeBikita West. And then after that, Chimwanda said he was then called from PGHQ, police headquarters. So this is the kind of toxicity that happens, like what you were saying. Police is professional, but it is ZANU-PF that is, operating and causing all these unprofessional, events happening within the police force. After that, Chimwanda was given a desk as an office. The office had a newspaper. He was now working in the police, what is called a police pool, whatever department. At the end of the day, it was a demotion. So you realize that this is the kind of system that we are facing. It is important that, like what you have said, we need to liberate not only ourselves, but as a party, we need to liberate even, the organs of the state that are under capture. This is very, very important. So my advice, let's continue to capacitate, work on the issue of going scientific, continue with this interaction of citizens. All these things and ideas that are coming from citizens, you'll be shocked. The party will find everything easy. This organic support is a result of the fact that we are citizen-centered. And let's continue to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. So you don't have a question, right? I thought you had a question as well, but it's okay. Vatete, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I'm back here. I am going to be very short and very sharp. I'm here to just honor Comrade Ostalos for the work that you're doing. The work that you're doing, it requires a lot of courage, a lot of dedication, selflessness, and conviction, for a better future. I know you have a team that you work with, but you as the mouthpiece representing that team that you work with, I just thought that I think it's only right to actually honor you right in front of everyone, to say we really appreciate you. I don't know how many times you've heard it, if at all, but I wanted to be that person that tells you that, so that you walk away really understanding the depth and the gravity of the work that you're doing. Every single time that we see you, wherever you are walking with the president, our hearts are not over, because we just always think about how safe are you going to be from there and so on. But please just know you are in our prayers. You are doing absolutely amazing work. And I just thought that it may not be a question. It may have nothing to do with the subject at hand, but I think it's just really important to tell you, that you are doing amazing work. And for me, I know for sure that our country, our continent, and the world at large is in good hands and safe hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vatete. Is it Admire T? Admire T, please go ahead.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you very much for allowing me just to make a contribution on a few points. First of all, Mutare was great. I watched the whole rally online, and I think that's I hope that's an indication of greater things to come. Secondly, one of the things I just wanted to point out is at the moment, I think that's to Ostalos. At the moment, the party has a lot of political capital. I'm hoping that you guys don't waste it. What I've seen so far is quite encouraging. I've seen you, I believe you are listening more than what you guys used to do when you were in the alliance, because I've seen now the efforts that you have tried to the things that we are trying to do. For example, when you go to Bulawayo and you have Chamisa speaking in Ndebele and almost everyone trying. I think that's great. You're not there yet, but I believe your shortcomings, you guys, you already know them. You're working on them. So I hope you're not wasting this. Then the second point I wanted to make, I think it's a contribution that was done last week or so by Freeman, and I saw other guys commenting on that, just using data to try and drive this election. So I'm happy to hear that you're working as hard as you can just to make sure that you target certain areas, because I think the problem that we're seeing currently is all those guys who are competing in urban areas, I don't think they are putting much effort. I saw a discussion yesterday about that where people are just complaining they are not feasible because they know that seats in urban areas, in most cases, they are won by the opposition. So I'm just hoping that you remind those guys. Did you hope mentions that we should not give an excuse for not voting. So some of us who are not in Zim, we're trying to right now to work around to make sure probably any of our visits this coming year, they coincide with the elections. Why? Because we've been told not to give excuses. So that's what we're trying to do. But these councillors of ours and MPs, what I've heard even with last week, I listened to a space where Mafume, the mayor of Harare, was speaking. What I hear from politicians in councils, especially the urban areas, is excuses. What they cannot do because of the minister or national government. You guys, they cannot tell us not to give excuses for not voting, but they have excuses for not performing. I stayed in Southerton when I was in Zim for quite a while. I voted twice there. But the MP for that area, I never saw him. He never had initiatives. Right now, he's contesting again. We put him back. We need to hold these guys accountable, but it needs to happen at party level. So at the end of the day, you guys, honestly speaking, the government, the national government is doing quite a lot of things to make sure councils don't function. But at the end of the day, we need you guys to hold your councillors to account. They have to try. In businesses and work where we spend all our time, an excuse has to come with, after an excuse has been given, there has to be a solution. What have they tried to do with the resources that they have, with the powers, the limited powers that they have? So I think it's one of those things which I hope, even these guys who we're putting back again on the 26th, they have a plan. We want to see what they are going to do between now and next year. Because honestly speaking, I voted for the opposition since I turned 18. But as long as you guys, you have the power, you have the votes, and we're not seeing not only at council level, but even at parliament level as well. We only know of a few guys, BT and a few other guys who are making reasonable and noticeable contributions. So I hope you guys are going to work on that. Then my last point that I just want to make is there is need for us to raise our game in the rural areas. I didn't wait for Chamisa to convert my parents or my folks in the rural areas. My parents, I did it myself. I reminded them of a few things. How many times do you see me a year? If you're sick today, can I drive to pick you up and take you to the hospital? Most probably you will die before I get here. Why? It's because of this party that you're voting. So I'm trying, we as individuals, we have a connection with those guys in the rural areas, one that they understand. We know their weaker points. We know things that we can tell them to change. What Chamisa will do is he will deliver the message that he can. But we need to provide as much push as we can. Let's talk to our nephews and our nieces, those who are 18 or who are turning 18, and encourage them to vote. Even those who are in the diaspora, talk to your friends. So at the end of the day, guys, the fight we have in 2023 is the fight for our lives and the fight for the existence of opposition in Zimbabwe. We have been demoralized because of the losses in the past, and I think we all had this MDC fatigue now. So at this moment, let's not waste this capital that we have now, where everyone, I've talked to a few people about contributions, especially with Kuda's fundraising for artists and the PA system, and a lot of people have contributed. So at the end of the day, we have to do what we can wherever you are. I think that's my submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Comrade Ostalos, are there any issues that you want to attend to which have been raised by the gentleman?
Thank you very much. I also want to accept compliments that came from my sister. We don't take those very lightly because they're important in terms of the affirmation of the direction that we're taking as deployees of Zimbabwean citizens. And then there was a point around making sure that Parliament. I think this is the of all the things that I've heard in the political market. I think this is a very important one. I've had very important issues being raised, but at least I've never come across with that level of submission that my brother just submitted. I don't want to make headlines in the newspapers because I know that there are journalists in these spaces, or people at least who are able to inform stories in the media. But what I can say is that because I'm here on my capacity as a representative of the Citizens Coalition, so I would say, my brother or Zimbabweans, look, when it comes to deployment of councillors and MP, please, I make this conscious appeal to the people of Zimbabwe on behalf of the Citizens Coalition, or to make it precise, on behalf of the Citizens Champion, His Excellency Advocate Nelson Chamisa, because he has made this call. But I want to try and make it emphatic and re-emphasize the call. Help us in terms of us having the quality leadership that is needed. This is a very important issue that you have raised, my brother, and it appealed to my conscience. And for me, the answer that I can say for now, without saying much, please help us in terms of deployment of councillors and members of parliament. The reason why we say let us be committed to a community process is because we want Zimbabwean people, particularly those who have capacity. I know most people who have capacity in the industry want to support from behind the scenes. Some don't feel like it's a safe space to do so, but I can tell you, and I want to appeal to the conscience of Zimbabwean people, please help us to deploy the best foot forward in parliament and in council. That will address the questions that have been raised by my brother. They appeal to my conscience, and I know they're in the hearts and minds of the people, of the person that you have deployed to lead this movement. And this, to me and to the president, has been confirmed as a non-negotiable position if we are to have him lead the people, because his moral and political responsibility is to protect the citizens. And one of his key demands from the leadership collective of the party is that we must make sure that we deploy the best foot forward. And we believe that those people come from the ordinary people. So please, 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 I appeal to the conscience of those that know in the back of their minds and hearts, this is a new movement. There is no narrative about you not being there in September 11, 99. It's a citizens movement. We want to deploy the best foot forward. There is no gatekeeping. There is no, of course, we have to do that conscious of our security issues and so forth. And I know that the organizing department, the elections department, have got protocols and procedures to deal with that. But my job is to make sure that the word reaches out there. Our Zimbabwean people who have capacity to lead, please help us to ensure that we have got the best foot forward to run our city councils, to run our parliament. There's no doubt about that. Most people spend their time in parliament sleeping. I call them sleepies. There's no doubt that some of the people that can be deployed in council might not be the best foot forward. Let us make sure that we have deployment of capable cadres. I don't want to make headlines, so that's why I try to appeal to the conscience of Zimbabwean people. Our intention and objective is to make sure that if we've deployed the best, let us deploy the excellent. That is, we must go from one glory to another in terms of deployment to these strategic sectors of government, because in local authorities we're government. So we need capable leadership that can be able to transform the lives of ordinary people through local government. In parliament, we must be able to have a proper legislative agenda that is created and driven by clear and conscious ideologically craft competent cadres to run an agenda as per the dictates of the constitution, which is to hold the executive to account. So we need to make sure that part of the thing that we are going to be doing, which we have to emphasize and make sure, is that we've got training for our deployees, so that people know in terms of their expectations from the citizens and the party, and the expectations and in terms of reference of what must be done. Because I can tell you that which we have defined as zones of autonomy are critical platforms that we can use to advance the struggle against authoritarianism. So if we don't have a progressive and clear program of action, we might end up doing what my brother is saying, to cry foul. And of course, the central government has done so bad to try and entrench the ceremonial mayorship that is there. But it needs people who are deliberate, who have got a plan to make sure that we go back to the executive mayor setup, so that the local authority can be able to deliver in terms of the expectations of ordinary people and different stakeholders in our entire body politic. I think.
Thank you very much, Comrade Dostalos. I think the most important thing that we must realize and understand as citizens is that in 2023, communities are going to choose their representatives. It's not the party that is going to impose names or individuals to represent us. It is us, the citizens, that are going to choose. So we are going to get what we deserve. If we send ignorant people to parliament or council, will reap what would have sown. If we send brilliant people, it means that we are going to get a good service. So if you're living in a community and you want a guy who understands what needs to be done, whether it's service, if it's council, or legislative agenda, if it's parliamentary, then you must make sure that you put your best foot forward by choosing people that are capable, people that have an agenda. I would suggest to communities that you need to interview these people. Talk to them about what they intend to do if they are sent to council. I don't think it's okay for a community to just say we've got one person. I think get 3-4 people, interview them, then get the best out of those 3-4 people to make sure that you are sending somebody who understands the role of council. They understand what needs to be done if things go wrong because of the meddling of ZANU-PF in councils. They understand that there are certain things that can be done without ZANU-PF. For instance, if I go and source an ambulance, ZANU-PF cannot stop me from bringing in an ambulance. So we have to ask the critical questions to say, have the deployees so far been creative enough to understand how to deal with a system that is autocratic? And to answer your question, what you're going to give as your representatives to CCC is what will determine whether your community's things are going to get better in terms of service, or whether you are well representative at parliamentary level. So I think the March 26th election is just to deal with members of parliament and council who were wrongly removed. But going forward in 2023 is going to be different. So I know that there are certain members of CCC that have been nominated, but that have been told by their communities that this is the last time. We're just sending you there because you're wrongly pulled out, but we are going to choose someone else. And that is what communities need to do. You know who is best in your community. You know who is capable, who has got craft competence for what is needed in order for you to get service. So you must choose capable people. Don't come after 2023 and complain, because all those people are going to be coming from your communities. Thank you so much. Valentine Zinumwe.
Thank you so much, Hopewell. Evening leadership. I want to speak on the issue of representatives, and I'm speaking uh, at the moment. I'm not in the country, but I want to speak in terms of my rural background. Where I'm coming from is we are under Sekai Nzenza, who happens to be the MP. But what's disappointing is at the time of the elections back then in 2018, we were mobilizing people to go and vote. We did not see the MP at that time. We did not see his visibleness. Some of us had to drive back all the way to Zimbabwe to try and mobilize communities to go and vote. We would carry, but the MP was nowhere to be seen. So this is very critical and very important, especially if we are to lure the rural vote. For me, it speaks some of the things that I've seen. For instance, we cannot have an MP or a councillor who's not on social media, especially in this era that we are having. We cannot have. So that's a startup. I saw some post of a councillor who was complaining that I don't even have data. Actually, it's an MP who was complaining in Chivi, is it Chivi South or something, that I don't even have data. For crying out loud, you are contesting to be an MP. How do you say you don't have data when you want to be an MP? So I'm saying we cannot have such come 2020. We need serious people. We need people who are motivated, who want this change, who are crying because we are tired. Some of us, we are tired of being in a foreign country. We also want to be in our country. And we see Triple C as the avenue that is going to bring about change. Now, Triple C is not going to bring about change on its own. It needs us, all of us as citizens. And I'm making a clarion call, especially to the brothers and sisters based in South Africa. There is no reason for you not to go and register and vote. There is no reason for you not to go back and vote in 2023. We are, if my numbers are correct, we are about over 600,000 of us here based in South Africa. So that's a huge number that can affect. So we have to go back and register. And on the leadership part, please, we need people that are serious. We don't want funny games. We don't want people that are not there. In fact, may I propose this? Soon after the elections are done, there has to be some pathway, some strategic plan to say already we start preparing who is going to represent who in the community. Let's not wait even for a proclamation of a date. That's when communities are starting. Let that be already be known to say, come 2023, this is going to be our representative, and it has to be someone that is visible, that can be noticed by not someone who wants to be an MP who's saying, I don't have data. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my brother. I'm going to be contesting as the Twitter Spaces representative. I hope I'll win. So I'll be the MP for Twitter Spaces. So these are very important points that you are raising, especially the quality of the leadership that is going to be chosen. And I totally agree with you that the process should not wait for a bell. It should be ongoing. As we're speaking now, we should be looking around our communities and saying, come 2023, who is likely to be our candidate? Engage those people so that you don't think about somebody who you then approach later and they say, no, I can't. Start talking to them. Start building the agendas for your communities. I live in Highlands Ward. I know that we need to sort out the library. I know that the clinic is not working. It needs to be fixed. I know that there are issues of beans that need to be resolved. It's a very affluent suburb. We should surely be able to raise money for a truck for our ward, and that truck can service us very well. We should be thinking about where we're going to be getting fuel for that truck. We should be thinking about where we're going to be getting books. So as you can see, I already visualize what my ward needs. And you should be doing the same thing in your communities. You know the problems that you're facing in your communities. You should start talking about them now. You know that good headmaster or ex-headmaster that you think is capable of going to council. Start talking to them. Start equipping them with whatever resources are needed so that he can start campaigning. We don't want a situation where people will say we'll start campaigning when Mnangagwa proclaims the election for 2023. The campaign should be ongoing. What Nelson Chamisa has done is to open the door to say we can now go out to those communities. We now have a name. We are a new baby. We know what we are selling. When we say yellow, people know what that is. So that should be ongoing. Those in the diaspora, you are very key and important in this arsenal of that will be required by people like Comrade Dostalos, because you have resources, you have ideas. Start making sure that these ideas are permeating down to the ground. Start making sure that you are engaging with your communities to figure out who's going to represent you, and start thinking about what needs to be done in your communities. You know them well better than those people that don't live there. You know what needs to be done at this school. You know whether it's possible for you to buy an ambulance for a local hospital. You know all those things. And it becomes very easy, Comrade Costalos, if communities pick competent people, it becomes very easy for people from those communities to actually contribute because they are confident of the quality of leadership of the person that has been able to hold them to account, and they can sit around as a cabinet and say, for this area of ours, if it's Mrewa, I come from Shemapango, we're able to say this is what we need. If the government does not do what is supposed to be done, this is how we're going to do it. But hopefully it will be a triple C government. So most of the problems that we face today, like the looting of public funds, the plan of the natural resources and so forth, will be a thing of the past. But somebody talked about what are we going to do with securing the vote. The only thing that we can do, ladies and gentlemen, is to make sure that we invest in our people registering to vote. There is no other way you can win an election under an autocratic regime like what we have with ZANU-PF, other than an overwhelming turnout, making sure that people vote and they defend their vote. Zambia has given us lessons. We should not complain post 2023 election. We have seen what needs to be done. Let us do it. Brother Ziso, go ahead.
Thank you, Hopewell, for the opportunity to contribute to this platform. There's a massive audience here, so thank you to everyone who's attending and to everyone who's made a contribution so far. I am. Thank you as well to Ostalos for coming through, for sharing your position on a few matters and for setting the record straight on a few things. It's always good to hear from people who are further up in the leadership, who have a closer proximity to where things are happening. I just want to say one or two things to all the people who've come through with a couple of ideas, to say in the language that we're using to describe some of the problems we see. We if we can, let's try and separate issues from where they look like it's the person, and let's look at what the system itself is doing. And I want to pick out on a very specific example, again, not the person, but the issue that was identified. If there's someone who's in a community who the community feels is the right person to represent them, who the community has a bond with, who the community feels is going to be the best representative and communicator of their interests and concerns, but that person is financially incapacitated, then that person might raise the issue of the fact that they don't have funding in place. Is that, and I'm willing to hear from anyone else who's currently got the mic, is that in and of itself a reason to disqualify that person from being a participant in the political space? Because that is a hurdle that we need to recognize as a collective. And if we are converging around the right people, is it not our responsibility to capacitate those who are incapacitated? That person raising the fact that they don't even have the data might speak to a wider issue of their capacitation. We have competent teachers in Zimbabwe right now who are incapacitated from delivering the great work we know they can do. We know they can do this work because they are part of the people who have capacitated us and enabled us to become people who can generate human capital, but they don't have current capacitation to continue to do that work going forward. The political space is no different. Arguably, it's worse. There's been a public fight about how that has played out. And we all know that the money we see, the balances that we see on all the fundraisers that we are exposed to, is the money that's there. If there's any other money, maybe the people who are in charge of funding can speak to that and say, well, there's this much funding available if it's something that they are able to or want to divulge. But I just want to say to people that there's a difference between a person's personal position in terms of capacitation, how we see it, and where the problem lies as far as this movement is concerned. I hope that that will be considered by people when they're looking at what needs to be addressed going forward. And if you know you're one of the people who is capacitated to address that, then go ahead and address it. If you're not, reach out to people who are. Let's become a people who embrace every opportunity to solve problems. It's problem solvers who can add value to a situation. Always, whether you are solving a small problem, a big problem, a lot of small problems, or one very monumental problem in your work. Being people who are good at speaking about problems has a value because you're highlighting things. But once something is highlighted, the next step is to solve it. We know that there's someone out there who maybe the community wants to represent them. What is the way forward in terms of capacitating that person? Is it up to them? Is it up to us? Is it a partnership? Does it need to be in a charter? Does it need to be in the constitution? Let's be holistic and let's have a wider view about this before dismissing someone who might be the best person for that community, who might be able to better galvanize that community, and who might be able to generate an outcome in terms of turnout for that community that anyone else could, even if they were better capacitated. Let's make sure that we focus on the issue that is presented. And I'm sure we can move forward and do amazing things come 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my brother, for that. I like people who come up with ideas because that is what this battle is about, ideas. I would like to throw the challenge to you to say, you've said something that is so profound about members in our communities who might not necessarily have the financial muscle required in order for them to run, whether it's for council or for parliament. Why don't you, with the help of others, set a network which works? You are a very progressive brother. Everybody knows you. Why don't you set a network that attends to that specific issue? And I'm sure people like Comrade Dostalos will be able to work with you, because that's exactly what, every time when I'm speaking to Ostalos, I always say, Comrade Ostalos, what is it that needs to be done? He always says to me, Mkoma, Tibatsire, what he's saying is that if you see something that needs to be done, then help us to fix it, because they can't be in all places at the same time. And the fact that Comrade Dostalos, as the deputy national spokesperson, says this to me all the time, I think we need to do that. let's take the ideas to them and let them endorse them, and then we run, because it's a citizen movement, and that's the beauty of it. The part does not belong to gatekeepers anymore as it used to when it was the MDCA. The party belongs to the citizens, and the citizens there are a lot of citizens who have got ideas, and I think you and I Ziso, need to do a specific space for those in the diaspora, because I strongly feel that the Zimbabweans in the diaspora have got a very important role to play, regardless of whether they are here or not. I actually imagine so many things that the diaspora could do. A local guy who is a ward councillor in Melbourne will be able to talk to some guys in London who come from that specific ward, who have resources, and they'll say, you know what, we're seeing what you are doing. Our mothers and our fathers are telling us that you're doing a good job. A truck to move rubbish costs only about £7,000 in London. We're going to pull resources together and send that truck to Zimbabwe, and that truck will be serving that specific ward, and council takes care of the servicing of that truck, but it's for that specific ward. Those are the things that we need to be doing post 2023. We need to change the game. So I agree with you, and I'm putting this challenge to you to say, let us flesh out those ideas. Let's throw some meat to the bone and make sure that they are implemented. Because for a long time we've become a nation with talk shops all the time, but nothing is delivered. Let's show that difference now, to say we have spoken about these issues. We are going to make sure that we implement them. Thank you so much. Comrade Dostalos, is there anything you want to add to what the brother said?
Hopewell, I think Costello's dropped maybe like 2 minutes ago. He became a listener, and then I don't know if he's still here, but he's not a speaker anymore. So the
Sorry,
space is recorded, and I'm sure he'll catch up with it, but he dropped. In any case, there are some messages. I've been DMing you for a while, but I think maybe you hadn't got to my messages. So feel free to catch me in the DMs and we can do something.
Okay, I'll do that, and I'll also give you my number. I'm sorry, I thought Ostalos was still there, because everyone has got Mazibaba's profile picture. So I was looking at Washington and I was thinking it's Ostalos. Okay, Washington, go ahead whilst we get Ostalos back. Hello? Ostalos, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you, Mkoma Opa. I can hear you now. I think my network was bad, so I had to drop and come back.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It does happen, and that's why you're fighting to make sure that we have a good network post 2023.
Precisely.
I'm sure you've been listening to some of the reflections and interventions and comments. Is there anything you want to add to what has been said?
Not for now. I could have missed some. I only came back when my brother was saying that I've dropped off. Surely the gadget had gone silent, so that's why I had to drop and come back.
No, thank you so much. Mambo Sose, please go ahead. Mambo Sose, can you hear me? Then let's move on to In Exile. In Exile, please go ahead. In Exile, can you hear me? El Gona, can you hear me? El Gonda, can you hear me? It seems these guys are having problems, so we're going to drop them, and we move to the next set of folks. We have Filter. Filter, can you hear me? Filter, can you hear me? I'm going to drop these guys because It seems they cannot hear us. Love More can hear.
Yes, I can.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. There's one thing that I'm always talking about here. It's about the human resource that we are blessed with as Zimbabwe. We've got plenty of very, very intelligent people with brilliant ideas out there, people who know what they are doing. And we must also accept a lot of these people do not also want to be politicians, but they can contribute. They'll be interested in making. They'll be interested in doing something for the country behind the scenes. So here's what I'm always asking for. Can we have a platform where anyone with whatever idea can just come into the platform, give in the idea, submit whatever it is they've got, because this is what will make us better. As people, we cannot expect our leaders or people in positions to know everything. There's always someone out there with a brilliant idea. So I really want to know, what is it that we can have? What is it that CC can do to provide such a platform for the people? Whether it's an email address or it's whatever it is, I think it's something that's very, very important.
Thank you very much, my brother. It's a very important intervention as well, and I think I hope Comrade Ostalos, you've got a pen. I think it's a good idea to set an email address which you can call ideas at ccc.com. And people can send as many ideas as they want, and I'm sure you can get some young volunteers who can go through and sift through all the stuff and put the emails according to categories. If it's ideas about council, if it's ideas about elections, if it's ideas about fundraising, so that all these ideas can get to you guys. So I think it's something that you need to think about as well. So Jeremiah Nerera, please go ahead.
Ndotenda neopportunity mukoma hope. Pane nyaya inini inogara ichindinetsa yekuti kutriple C kwedu ikoko munhu akauya aine contribution inenge iri different inenge ine kanenge kakunorerekera kutange kushora vatungamiri anobva atonzi muvengi. Inini iyoyo inogona kutiurayira pati yedu takatarisa iyoyo. Vanhu ngati acceptei different opinion then toweka nema opinion anenge achiraiswa nevanhu, kwete kuti vanhu vatye, because pane vamwe vanhu vanototya kuraisa mapoints avanenge vachiona kuti apa pari kukanganiswa, nekuti vanenge vachitya kuti vanozonzi vatengesi kana kuti havasi vanhu veCCC. Saka ipapo tofanira kuve accountable, tofanira kubvuma kuti apa pakanganiswa, because hakuna munhu anogona zvese. Saka ngatitore maideas evanhu vese then tovaka chinhu one, because tiri kuda Zimbabwe yakanaka, because tisina kusiyana neavavo vana avo vekuti ukavaudza chinhu vanobva vatokuti uri mutengesi, watumwa warungu, wazonzwai, but unenge uchitaura zvinhu zviri paground. Unobva wanzi uri mhando. Saka ipapo ngatipagadzirise tisiyane neavavo, tiratidze kuti takasiyana navo pazvese. Nenyaya iri kutaurwa iri kugara ichitaurwa napresident, I think ngatiitore into practical, zvekunzi vatungamiri ngavabve kuvanhu, ngavabve kuvanhu zveshuwa. Ngatite walk the talk, ngatiregere kungotaura chete, ngatite walk the talk, nekuti tikangotaura chete zvinotidzokera futi mangwana, nekuti vanhu vanonga kuti inga makazoti zvakati but hamuchadaro. Saka ipapo vanofanira kunyatsoti make sure kuti tiri kuita here zvatavimbiswa, because chinhu ichi ndechemacitizen, ndechedu. Saka isusu macitizen ndisu ngatisarudzei vanhu, because chiri kuyeuka monzwa achirambidzwa kutaura nemacitizen avo vachamisa vachizomirira kuti aiwa ngaataure chichi Saka ipapo ndo patinofanira kuva nechidzidzo chekuti macitizens anoziva more kupfuura utungamiri. Ndatenda hangu.
Thank you very much, my brother. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Kuda, please go ahead. Kuda, can you hear me? Okay, we'll move on to Vamak. Is it Vamachanja? Vamachanja.
Thank you very much, my brother Hopewell. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I hope everybody's hearing me. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to speak about two topics that have come up since I joined the spaces. Number one is the issue about the incapacitation of those people that would have been chosen to represent the community, be it councillors or MPs. Now, I managed to get to Zimbabwe sometime early this month, and I managed to attend one of the rallies. What I realized there is the people have a great passion for their party. The people have a great passion for this movement. The people are really connected to the movement and they are so much interested. Now, I spoke to a few gentlemen that I met to just try and understand where they were coming from, what they were doing, and what their thoughts were. So what I gathered then is that against all odds, the gentleman told me that they traveled trying to attend each and every rally, doing specific work before the rally is put together, and working on a dollar budget. So that got me thinking to say, if there are people that are so interested in this movement and that are feeling that this has to be done, and they live on a dollar, maybe 2 or 3 gentlemen together, just to make sure that they get there on time, prepare everything that has to be prepared, and put things together. Now, there is need for any sober-minded Zimbabwean or for any sober-minded individual to find means of supporting or adopting such individuals. So the movement is big to an extent that there are so many moving pieces. And one has got to look at it in a manner that says, amongst these moving pieces, where can I get in? Probably as I'm in the diaspora, I then ask myself, how can I then support these moving pieces? How can I give help? So then the next stage is to say, my brother, I thank you for whatever that you are doing. I know that you are doing this because you are passionate and you believe in it, but you may not have the resources at each and every given time to be able to accomplish that which you want to accomplish. So then I came in there and I started saying, okay, in the future, please let's communicate so that I can also help you financially in this process. So there are so many things, there are so many moving pieces that make up the movement. There are so many moving pieces that make up the fantastic images that we saw from Mutare today. So one has got to ask themselves and say, how can I be part of the process? How can I be part of the moving pieces? What role can I play to make sure that this gigantic wheel continues to flow? So I've seen that within the party or within the movement, there are people that are doing various activities, be it fundraising, to make sure that certain structures within the party are supported. But that is not the end of the story. There are people that work outside the party. There are citizens that are doing things that they are doing to just make sure that the movement is going on. So my take on that is, if there is a councillor or a councillor candidate or an MP candidate that is chosen by the people, and that candidate may not have the resources, it is prudent for anybody of us. For a group of people, for one person. And the funny thing about this thing is that the guys are not really asking for millions. They just want to be able to get by. They just want to be able to move from one place to another. They just want to be able to gather a few gentlemen and talk about the vision of the Ccc movement. So when you drill this issue down, you may find that maybe $50, $100 a month is actually enough for them to be able to carry out the processes that they want to carry out. So if there is any candidate, maybe in the future, that is unable to provide for themselves in terms of data, but they are wanted by the community, because at the end of the day, it is the community that votes. And we must try and shy away from people that come from the diaspora and go in there with big cars, flashy cars. They go in there, they donate, they give people food, they disappear, they don't interact, they don't live with the community. We don't want to keep on reducing the electorate to paupers. We need to reach a stage where the electorate understands the people that they choose to represent them, such that these are the very same people that they live with and they speak at the same level. We have seen several times where people will come from a certain section of the world towards the election. They come with everything that you can think of. They win and they disappear. 6 months down the line, you don't hear about them. You don't know about them. They don't even go into parliament. So those are kind of scenarios that you've got to avoid. And I support the idea that any candidate that has been chosen by the people and that the people believe in should be supported by the citizens, and the citizens should take charge around that. And the next issue that I want to
round up.
Just okay, all right, okay. Let me drop for now. The issue is actually escaping my mind now.
Thank you very much. Please, I'm going to give 2 minutes to each. We've been here since 7, so I would like us to finish it around 21:41, so that we can give 4 minutes to Comrade Ostalos to round off his reflections. So we'll go to Stephen B. Please go ahead. Stephen B, can you hear me? It seems he cannot hear me. D, can you hear me? D, you can't hear me, so I'm removing you from the speakers.
Yes, I can hear you clearly, actually. I can hear you
Okay,
clearly.
please go ahead. You've got 2 minutes. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Hopewell, and you
Yeah,
are at the
let's
forefront
go ahead.
of the spear in what you're doing. So thank you for this platform. Now, this is directly to Ostalos. Question number 1. Are we filing a lawsuit against ZEC for the overwhelming evidence of rigging the voters' roll? I ask this, Ostalos, because A, there seems to be procrastination on certain battlefronts. So yes, on the battlefronts of our rallies, we're doing excellently. On the battlefronts of raising funding from the diaspora, we're doing well. But the issue is on the voters' roll. The voters' roll is the election, Marume. And we need to fight on that front, but it seems we're procrastinating. And therein kicks in the law of unintended consequences. I really, hopefully, you can give a straight answer, Mr. Spokesperson. As you know, what will undermine us is we need to do a regional political drive, engaging the regional political leaders, ruling parties, so that we can gain their sympathy. But imagine you're talking to ANC, you're talking to representative of Zambia, Botswana, and the first thing they're going to ask is, okay, guys, there was a problem with the voters' roll. That's what you are alleging. Did you exhaust your domestic remedies? It would be shooting ourselves to respond and say, no, we did not go to court. Even if the courts are captured, the whole point is to exhaust that domestic remedy so that when we go out there, we'll say, you know what, legally, there is no recourse, there is no relief in Zimbabwe. The courts are captured. Here is a clear case. Therein comes in a strategy where we can include my regional lawyers, you know, that represent Vana ANC, Vana President Haikande, the new president, Weku Kenya, who's coming in. Even if they come in by Zoom correspondence and just say, guys, here is a case, solid case, it's data, it's science, it's analytics put together for us freely by Pachedu, and this is what we have, the rigging, and what's your input. Those lawyers, they have a close ear to the ruling parties in the region because they represent them probably in similar matters. And they would be able to say, you know what, regardless of what the courts in Zimbabwe have said, it's clear that the courts are captured. There was a solid case here, and the ruling party in Zimbabwe is stealing the franchise for people to choose their leaders through the voters' roll. So please, let's even if we're not doing it, but this is the risk that we lose. We can lose sympathy. So please, let us do it. That was the quick contribution. It's the most burning issue for me. Everything else, I'm happy. Everything else, we're doing well. But we just need to have something going into court before March 26. We can fight on the day after the vote. That would be another a platform. We can continue fighting maybe as a contested, but before the fact, we really need to say, you know what, we have exhausted domestic remedies, and right now it seems it's all quiet. Yes, partial promises are behind the scenes, but we are left with a weak varume. We can do an urgent court application on Monday, file it in with the evidence to say the voters' roll is rigged by 10%, as was said by Kampana Kakeku Zek Nezuro. That's my contribution. Wopo, thank you. Keep up the good work you're doing. We are cheering you. And Ostalos, thank you for your great work. But please answer this directly. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, my brother. Comrade Ostalos.
Thank you, my brother, for such an eloquent question. The answer is an absolute yes. We've done public interest litigation. We've been to the courts. What I can tell you of it, that we filed a case in the High Court of Zimbabwe of voters for Igmaro in Kwekwe Central, where the MP, the applicant being Judith Tobaiwa, our MP for Kuke Central. But we have not only done just that in terms of doing litigation in the court, utilizing domestic remedies. We have also utilized Chapter 16 institutions to try and make sure that we've got all the collected evidence of our engagement with the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission in relation to violence, because this is also directly linked to the election. So we've done massive work on that in terms of exhaustive domestic remedies, so that we've got a strong case if we are to push regional international advocacy. Work, we are very serious with that, and we are conscious of that, and we've deliberately done that. Our cases are in court, specifically the one that I've mentioned for Kuka Central, but also we've gone just beyond the courts in terms of also exhausting domestic remedies by making sure that we engage the commissions, in particular in relation to issues around violence and also around media freedom and other things, and even engaging the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission itself in relation to its conduct and behavior, so that these things are documented and will help us as we have framed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Love Mo, are you there? Okay, Love Mo is not there. Kuda Mafumo, are you there? Okay, so Comrade Ostalos, thank you very much for coming on board this Twitter Spaces and for answering the questions. We bringing this to an end now at 10:45 Zimbabwean time. It's now 18 minutes to. You've got 3 minutes to give us your reflections before we shut down the space.
Thank you very much, Koma Hope, for hosting this important Twitter space. As Zimbabweans, Africans, I thank you for listening to our presentation, and also we've learned a lot from the collective engagement that has happened. We hope to implement most, if not all, of the contributions, so that we are able to perfect and champion this agenda going forward. A lot is going to be reviewed as we move with the agenda of the citizens movement. Expect a lot of developments on the part of the leadership in the party. The intention and agenda is to win Zimbabwe for change. Let us keep on. I saw there was a link around donation. Let's make sure that we contribute. The biggest immediate fight that we are faced with is the by-election. The by-election is going to be heavily taxing on our part, so we expect to put our hands on the deck so that we win the by-election and begin the pathway to form the next government. The strategic focus is on the 2023 election. That is where everything must be focused on. But for now, we're focusing on the by-election, but with the intention to make sure that we quickly reorganize ourselves and focus on the bigger meal and on the main course, which is the 2023 election. Otherwise, we forge ahead. Tomorrow, we are here in Masvingo, in Rujeko. We have already started preparation to make sure that the space is cleared and our people are ready for tomorrow. So those who have relatives in Zakuva, those who have relatives, here in Rujeko and Masvingo, let them know. The champion-in-chief is going to be addressing around 2 p.m. tomorrow. So let's all be ready to make sure that the train of freedom and transformation presents itself to the people of Masvingo. After that, we're going to announce the next stop. By-election are close by. Let us continue to register to vote. Let us turn out in numbers to vote on the 26th of March. It's a very crucial election which is going to determine part of the pathways that we are taking as the citizens of this country and as a collective African society here in this part of Southern Africa. So let's push on. Let's be there. We are prepared to surrender ourselves before we surrender this project. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Ostalos. I hope we will have another Twitter Spaces on the 26th in the evening, same time, 7 o'clock, to reflect on the voting that would have taken place. I'd like to thank everybody who came on board, everybody who was listening, everyone who contributed. Your contributions are very important. And I would like you to go back to your communities and continue to mobilize young people. If there's anything that you think we can do as journalists to help amplify that message of voter registration, I've got a WhatsApp line which you can send whatever you think I need to know. But thank you so much, Comrade Ostalos, and thank you very much to everyone who came on board. I will see you on Saturday next week when we reflect after the polling.
Oh, yo, yo, yo. Triple C die hard fast. I be like, now you a shaman. You a shaman. Now you a shaman. You a shaman. Now you a shaman. You a shaman. Shaman. You a shaman. Now you a shaman. You a shaman. Now you a shaman. You a shaman. Now you a shaman. You a shaman. Shaman. You a shaman. Unosapota zanu neiko kuti tuyazichitonga yakaiteiko asi pane zvimwe zvaunowana here zvatisingazive kana pasina unakufana hezvo hautonyari kutosimudza maoko maviri uchiteedzera kuti pamberi nezanu apa mupoketi usina kana mari unomusekerera pashoni jamba yaanodava achisasa apa utorimo pauende kubasa hawangumira ndikutipe wakapusa pepuka pepuka uchiri wakarara changamuka pepuka pepuka upotere chamisa uwane shanduko pepuka pepuka uchiri wakarara changamuka pepuka pepuka upotere chamisa uwane shanduko asi nyangwe ndiwewo makore 42 zanu chingotonga apa nokwedze zvironda uchingononga seko chitadza kuona zvinhu zviri pachena so wakazungaira iwe une shuwa ungabvuma kunyengedzwa nekapu yepeu garo nerekoteredza haiva panoenda unogeza nondigumburisa mani inga pesi yako yakachangamuka wani indava wakapusa wakatodza ani ichiterera mandi ndikubaira zani pepuka pepuka uchiri wakarara changamuka pepuka pepuka upotere chamisa uwane shanduko pepuka pepuka uchiri wakarara changamuka pepuka pepuka upotere chamisa uwane shanduko wangu usanyeperwe mani hapana kana chenji ichaunzwa nezano vanobava vane uori voda kuzowanda nekupomedzera mabhunu vanogaya kuti takadhibha vari kudhibha kuti ndivo vakanyudza 15 bhita musanyeperwe hasi masanction auraya nyika icorruption Ndikuti chii wangu kusapusa kana uchida chandikubvutira chamisa zvamanje ndiye ari kupisa vamwe vese mombe ngavaende kunorisa pepuka pepuka uchiri wakarara changamuka pepuka pepuka upotere chamisa uwane shanduko